So you want to offer the bank $20,000 less than the list price because of the carpet and the paint. Got it. So you decided to make an offer on a bank-owned property. There's a few things that I think you might need to know that'll help you stay on the right track. Matter of fact, just 4 things. And the first thing is that things like paint and carpet are usually factored into the price. I do say usually because not every property is going to fit the mold, but 99% of the times, I promise you that the bank, the seller in this situation, is aware that the property needs paint and carpet. As a matter of fact, banks actually do their due diligence to understand exactly what it is they have to sell. They will use their listing agent to tell them things about the property, like the condition. What are some of the things that a buyer is going to look at and equate dollar signs to? And they will usually consider that when it comes to their marketing plan. And the marketing plan includes the list price. I always try to give an example where if you were to look into a development where all the homes are the same, they're the same year, same square footage, same bedroom, bathroom, you get the picture. If all the homes in that development are selling for $300,000 and a bank property comes on the market for $275,000. It's not that there's a huge savings. Usually what's going on is the bank or the seller has already decided that this property needs some work. Maybe it's $10,000, maybe it's $15,000, maybe it's $30,000. But that usually is going to be reflected in their asking price. So don't go and tell the bank that you're going to offer them $20,000 or $30,000 less because you need to go and paint it and put in carpet. It's not going to happen. Now, personally, to me, this one doesn't have that much weight because I don't really think sellers' disclosures are accurately filled out, and most people don't even read them. But foreclosed properties or REO properties are exempt from seller's disclosures. Now, if you don't know what a seller's disclosure is, I'm not going to go into great detail, but in short form, it is a document that asks the seller some questions about their knowledge of the property. Since banks don't have any history and or background with the property, it's impossible for them to comply and fill out this document. So they are exempt in most states, I'm speaking for PA mostly, are exempt from having a seller's disclosure. Traditional real estate, that is not the case, but when you are purchasing a foreclosed property, there is a lack of background history. The reason that I say that I don't put much weight on it, again, goes back to most sellers don't accurately fill out a seller's disclosure and most buyers don't read them. So really, is there any weight to it? Most of the time, buyers won't go back to that seller's disclosure until they have reason to, which is usually after they own the property or when things go awry in the transaction itself. There could be additional delays. When you are purchasing a bank-owned property, similar to there being no history on the property, the bank does not know the history as far as what other liens or judgments may be against that property. When you purchase a property, you also purchase what is referred to as title insurance. Title insurance protects you from any previous cloud on title. So if someone were to knock on your door and say that they were owed money for doing repairs to the property and they filed a mechanic's lien, well, title insurance is what would protect you from that claim. It is to protect you from anything the previous owner did that may have included that property or where the property was liened or a judgment was put against it. And since the seller or the bank doesn't know exactly what they need to clear up, at times there have been delays on title. I have also seen delays where parties did not receive proper legal notice, which goes back to the foreclosure process in which how things are handled. Now that's a whole nother story, but if people aren't properly served in the state of Pennsylvania, that could also correlate to some lengthy delays, if not possibly even your transaction being terminated. With delays comes additional fees. And this is something that I come across quite often when buyers are working with an inexperienced REO agent or an agent who simply doesn't read. When you are purchasing an REO property, not all banks pay customary closing costs. And this could equal hundreds, if not thousands of extra dollars for you, the buyer. Several banks don't pay what is referred to as transfer tax. Transfer tax is adjusted per county, but in the county in which I reside, transfer tax is 2%. Buyer pays one, seller pays the other. Well, if you are purchasing a foreclosed property from some banks, they will not pay their portion of transfer tax. So if you're buying a home for $200,000, 1% of that is $2,000. That's a pretty hefty amount to add to your bottom line, especially if you are just being told a week before closing, because a lot of times that's when this comes to light. You might also have to incur additional fees for things like the township inspection. When you are purchasing a home from a traditional seller, usually the seller will provide you with the township inspection, the use and occupancy or the certificate of occupancy. There's different names for it, but they usually will provide that for you. When you were purchasing a bank-owned property, the banks are selling them as is, in which you, the buyer, are responsible to pay for the township inspector to come out and do the inspection, and you're also liable to cure after closing whatever defects they find. So those will also add to your bottom line. You may also need to pay for a contractor to get the property ready for inspections. Banks do their best to protect their assets, especially here in the northeastern section of the country. When it's cold out, banks make sure that those properties are protected. They winterize them. They make sure that there's no water in the lines. Sometimes the electric is off and so forth. But when you want to do an inspection, you need to have these things. You need to have water, you need to have electric, you need to have heat, and it might be your expense to have a contractor come and do a de-winterization or get the property ready for your inspection. So all of these different things could add to your bottom line, and there's a few more. But again, make sure you are aware of the additional fees that might come into play, which leads me to my last point. And I know I said earlier that there were only 4 tips, so I guess this is a bonus. And you know me, I love bonuses. Work with an experienced REO agent. This is definitely a unique part of the real estate industry, and a lot of realtors are going to tell you that they have the know-how to go ahead and get it done. And I'm not discrediting any realtor who hasn't done one of these deals before, because we all start somewhere, but make sure that you are dotting your I's and crossing your T's and really reading the documents that are there in your transaction. Every bank has their own addendums, and that wording should be digested by not only you, the buyer, but also your realtor. So there you have it. Thanks for tuning in for another Just the Tip Tuesday with Chris. Hopefully you found some value to this content. Do me a favor, please like, comment, and/or share, because if I can get this information in front of just one person who finds value in it, well, then my job is done. With that said, tune in next week for the very next Just the Tip Tuesday with Chris. Until then, take care.